Hello, and thank you for joining us today for the fourth of the Center for Inclusive Excellence's programs on how student services impact classroom teaching. We're really pleased to have with us today Daryl Hess and Carla Ramirez Ashurst from the Office of the Student Ombudsman, and thank you so much for sharing with us today and for spending this time together. Daryl and Carla.
Thank you very much, Lot. So we'll just go ahead and get started with our presentation. I want to let people know that, as Lot said, we'll have plenty of time at the end for questions and answers, and hopefully we'll clarify most things before we get to the end. But we're going to start off with an overview of what we're doing today. First, we're going to talk about what is an ombudsman and why do we have an ombudsman at SDSU. What is a student ombuds role, and the university policies that actually guide what we do on campus, and then what can you expect as a faculty member from your interactions with the Office of the Student Ombudsman. So the name ombudsman is really an odd word. A lot of times people ask me what I do for a living, and I tell them, well, I'm the ombudsman for the students at SDSU, and they look at me really kind of funny and go, what? And so I have to explain to them what it is. And the word ombudsman actually is a Swedish word, and it means representative. You can use different variations of the word. You can call us ombuds, ombudsperson. We'll even answer to hey you if that's what we need to do. We're not real formal about that. It's just a word that's out there. The Swedish government actually created the first ombuds position in the early 1800s. And it was a situation where an ombudsman was created to help the people in Sweden to resolve issues that they had with the government and with the king. And so at the most fundamental level, we're just someone who assists individuals and groups in the resolution of their conflicts or concerns. It's a position that exists today in a lot of large corporations, government institutions, universities, and just larger, more corporate bureaucratic organizations of that type. At SDSU, we've had an ombudsman for the students since 1968. And there are some people who think that we might have been the first college in the country to have an ombudsman for students. It also makes sense that this happened around 1968. If you look at what was going on campus and in the world, this was, the Vietnam War, the Summer of Love was 67, and all the peace and the protest movement that was going on. If you look at the yearbooks from 1967 and 1968 on campus, you'll see that Joan Baez was on campus singing protest songs. The pacifist organization from Stanford was having huge teaching sessions outside here on the lawn at SDSU. There's even when Dow Chemical sent a representative to recruit students to work for them, they were met with protests, and the students actually burned an effigy of the recruiter in protest because Dow Chemicals provided napalm for the war. And so there's a lot of unrest that was going on and a lot of just mistrust that was happening at that time. So the long-range planning committee of the Associated Students actually made the suggestion that we have an ombuds office, and they even funded this office for a while before it became something that was funded through other student fees. And the purpose was to help students just to solve their problems with the faculty and administration at SDSU. The first ombudsman at SDSU was Nelson Norman. He was a history professor before he was appointed as ombuds. We have a lot of very interesting records from him and things that were going on at the time and issues that he resolved. But one of the things that's interesting is he says that this is a position where he thought that students might want someone to come in and pat them on the back and soothe them and make them feel good. But he learned quickly that students really just wanted someone to tell them the truth, tell them like it is, and help them to get on with real life. He also says that this is a position that he felt like every faculty member should be required to serve in on a rotational basis so that they could learn what kinds of issues and things are going on at the university. We've come a long way since 1968. Today, we have 3 people who work with our office mostly. That's myself. I have been at SDSU since 2006. I've not been in this role since 2006. I've been in this role for about the past 5 years. Prior to this, I worked in student affairs. I worked in business affairs. I worked in the Student Health Center. I was a judicial hearing officer and a faculty member, an adjunct faculty member in the leadership program. So I've had a lot of different experiences on campus here at SDSU, and I'll let Carla tell you about herself.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Carla Ramirez-Ashurst, and I'm the Assistant Student Ombuds here on campus. And I've been at SDSU for about 25 years now. I got both my bachelor's and my master's from SDSU. And I started working as a student assistant for this office. So I've seen a lot of that history. Certainly, that Daryl was mentioning earlier about, just our office evolving. So with that in mind, and also just so you all know, the student ombuds, our deputy student ombuds is Chris Turntine. Chris, some of you may know him, and he's also the director for the CARES department on campus. So if anything were to happen to Daryl or I, Chris is it. All right, so what does the student ombuds do here at SDSU? As you recall, from what Daryl was talking to us about, just students being in unrest, just not trusting. If we think back at ourselves being, our first years on a big, huge campus, things aren't very apparent where to go, who to go, what questions to ask who. And so that is one of the things that our office helps students with, to just make sure that they understand what the process is here on campus. There could be a lot of red tape. Students could be hitting walls. And so, we try to help students and guide them through all those steps and the avenues that they have available on campus. And it's also very apparent too, for some of the international student populations too, that things may be different, how things work at home and how things work here. So we try to help them understand. All right, and so our role is, to be very transparent with students, and we always like to let students know what their options are and what their responsibilities with those options are as well. And so we listen to student concerns. One of the things that I do emphasize is, and I do make sure, is that I listen to students' concerns carefully. Students don't want to be seen as a number. They don't want to be seen as, just a random person. Sometimes they just need to vent. And so our office is here to listen to them, make sure that their concerns are heard, addressed, and that they know what their options are. In the event student wants to proceed, we investigate their complaints. We gather the information for them. If there are certain appeals, certain steps that they have not taken, we help them look, make sure that they've exhausted all avenues. We explain those policies and the procedures, the rules, so that they can make the best decision for themselves moving forward. We don't make the decisions for them, even though sometimes they ask us, what would you do? It's more of what is the best thing for you to do. And so also, we observe FERPA regulations, as many of us do. So we do not share anything related to student records that the student does not give us permission to share. When they come to our office, they fill out a form. They give us permission to share with only those that are on a need-to-know basis. So we may need to reach out to faculty, to chairs, assistant deans, and so forth. And if needed, the student ombuds can recommend changes, whether it be for an administrative process or, but not, for policy. We'll get into that a little farther in our presentation. So some of the things we don't do, we do not handle student discipline. That is referred to the Center for Student Rights and Responsibilities. But when faculty call our office, certainly we will give them that referral, that information. But if they just want to talk about, certain situation, whether it be with a student, or if they just have a question about, hey, does my syllabus kind of cover this? We're more than happy to kind of go over a syllabus and making sure that those things are clear. We do not take sides. So we are not here, like Daryl mentioned, if, we don't come up and call you and say, well, the student said this. So, we don't take side. We just make sure that we are an advocate for a fair process so that the student has been given the information and they're being treated equally. We do not change grades or any other university policies on campus. And we don't give legal advice. We do have referrals for students who do seek that type of service. We have associated students referrals for an on-campus legal program or a referral, and off-campus entities as well. We do not fill any roles which could create conflict. For example, being a conduct coordinator or conduct officer, or any other position in which we would influence maybe policy change, because if a student comes to our office and wants to complain about that policy, obviously there would be some conflict there. And so some of the issues that we deal with, there's a whole range of them, but the majority, the bulk of them are on your screen. So we do deal with grade disputes or issues within the classroom, where a student may feel that professor said something unprofessional, they just have concerns, they just want to talk about it. Policy questions, financial aid issues. And remember, at every point we do ask the student to try to resolve the issue with the person directly. For financial aid, there is a FSA of Federal Student Aid Ombuds, so we do refer them to that for that particular issue. Again, for student discipline process, we do not intervene, but we are very happy and glad to talk to students and guide them through the process, what happens when they are accused of cheating or plagiarism. We do get a lot of housing issues at the very beginning of the semester, late schedule adjustments, billing issues, and we've received complaints of discrimination, harassment, but those we do forward immediately to the Center for the Prevention of Harassment and Discrimination, who handles those issues appropriately.
All right, so Carla shared with you a long list of things that could possibly come to our office. And just to give you an idea of the numbers and how we handle those situations, last academic year, we had 876 contacts with our office where people had an issue that they wanted to talk about. From those 876 issues, we actually opened 119 cases. So that means there was 119 of those situations where we realized there's something here that we need to start tracking and working with the student to try to resolve. Of those 119 cases, 11 of them resulted in actual formal grievances, where the student said, I really want to file an official written complaint to the university. Out of those 11 grievances, 10 of them were resolved, either dismissed by the committee as not being relevant to anything, or they were resolved, and one of them resulted in an actual hearing where people had to come and testify before the grievance committee. So this gives you a little bit of an idea of the path of a complaint when it comes to the office and how we work through things. So I used the word grievance, and that gets people a little bit excited sometimes and kind of scares people. So I want to talk to you about exactly what I mean when I say grievance. When I talk about a grievance, I'm talking about a student grievance, and it's actually defined in the University Senate policy file. And it says a grievance shall be a complaint arising out of any alleged unauthorized or unjustified act or decision by a member of the faculty, administration, or staff that in any way adversely affects the status, rights, privileges, or privileges of a member of the student body. So it is a student not coming to us saying, I want somebody punished, but they're saying something has happened to me and it is in some way affecting my status as a student, my rights as a student, or my privileges as a student. And as Carla said, the number one thing students come to us about is grades, and grades definitely affect all three of those things. But there are many issues that a student comes to us about that could affect those things. The next sentence is also very important, and that says that the burden of proof shall lie with the complainant. The complainant is the student. Therefore, the burden of proof for saying that this really occurred and that it did affect me in this way lies with the student. It is not with the person who is being complained about or the respondent. Another thing to know is that if it gets to the point of an actual grievance, there's a committee that handles student grievances. The Student Grievance Committee, that Student Grievance Committee is composed of faculty members, staff members, and students. And according to the University Senate policy file, the Student Grievance Committee shall hear complaints, investigate grievances, and make final judgments regarding redress of student grievances concerning members of the faculty, administration, or staff. So what I want to point out about that is it talks about the committee shall make final judgments regarding redress. Redress means, how do we correct a situation? It says they hear the complaint, they investigate it, and they make final judgments. That final judgment might be, we're just dismissing this. There's nothing to it, and there's nothing significant here, and we're dismissing it. Or it might be that we do need to make some changes. It might be that the student's grade needs to be changed or something along those lines. The next sentence says that the Student Grievance Committee may make advisory recommendations regarding disciplinary action to the appropriate administrators. So the committee may do that. In the 5 years that I've been here, I have never seen the committee make any recommendations regarding discipline of an employee. However, the committee might do that. It is possible. And once again, it is just a recommendation. It is not a final judgment. The final judgment is in regards to the redress of the student issue and how to make things different for the student. There is a student grievance code. If you go to the website for the Office of the Student Ombudsman, which is listed down here on the slide, it's sa.sdsu.edu/ombuds. There's links to the grievance code, the grievance procedures, the policy file, all those things. And you'll see that there are guidelines, very specific guidelines provided for informal discussion of issues, investigation of issues, and hearing procedures should it ever get to the point of actually needing to have a hearing about a concern. One thing that surprises a lot of people when they come to us is this statement here that's in the Student Grievance Committee procedures, and it says the student shall have attempted all reasonable lower levels of redress available, including at least discussion with the individual by whom the student is aggrieved, that person's immediate supervisor, and the student ombudsman. So sometimes students come into our office and they think that we're just going to solve everything for them and we're going to go talk to everybody for them, and we're not. The first thing we ask them is, who have you talked to about this? Oh, you have an issue with this professor? Have you told that professor that you have this concern? Because that professor may not even know that the concern exists. And many students are horrified when we tell them that. They have no idea how to tell a professor, I don't like what just happened. Others know very well how to tell people that, but a good number of our students don't know how to talk to someone. And so oftentimes we talk with them about how they might relay this information, what are methods for relaying this information, and sometimes we even do role plays with students and just kind of walk them through how they might approach a professor or a faculty member or an administrator and say, I have a concern and I don't like this, or I feel like this has been inappropriate toward me in some way. So we tell students, it's a good rule in life that if you have a problem with somebody, that you should tell that person before you tell anyone else and let them have an opportunity to resolve it. And it's not just a good rule in life, it's an actual policy at SDSU. You should tell the person. And then we refer them to department chairs and also to assistant deans, associate deans, and then we can get involved should we need to also.
All right, and so if you remember from previous slides, grade changes are, one of the key issues that our office sees more often. And so, as Daryl mentioned, we want to make sure that the student has exhausted all levels of redress. So once that, we do emphasize and let the student know that, the grade given by an instructor cannot be changed unless, they go through the grievance process, and there are guidelines too for the Student Grievance Committee to make a determination or a recommendation more to change a grade. And so when a student wishes to file a grievance, we let them know that there are deadlines they need to follow, and these are also on our website and in the procedures. So students who say have a grievance this term in the fall, they would have until the end of the spring to file a formal grievance. So this is an issue that's happened in the fall. They have the entirety of the spring semester to try to talk to the faculty, talk to the department chair, the assistant dean, and any other individual that may need to be aware of the situation.
So these deadlines may seem like they're pretty lenient, but we do understand that sometimes an issue doesn't happen until final. Sometimes right at the end of the semester, the student learns about an issue, and so they need some time to work on it. The other thing we want to make sure you understand is that we discourage students from waiting till the last minute to work on an issue. We tell them, you need to start working on this now. You do have until the last day of the following semester to file an actual grievance, but hopefully it's not going to become a grievance. Hopefully it's going to be an issue that if you just go talk to this person, this can be resolved, and it will never make it to that point. So if a student comes to us and they tell us that they have been talking with the faculty member and the department chair, and they're not able to get the issue resolved in a way that they feel is appropriate, then we may actually reach out to you also and talk with you. And some of the general guidelines for those conversations are to know that, again, we're not involved in discipline of students or employees. We are here to guide the student through the official channels that are outlined by policy at the university. We're bound by FERPA. And so FERPA means that we can talk to folks on a need-to-know basis. And if there is an issue that needs to be resolved with you, then you need to know about it. And we need to know what's going on there so that we can hopefully help resolve that issue. But we are bound by FERPA, so we're not telling the rest of the world about it. We're just talking with you and the student about the issue, or those who are involved. We're also mandated reporters. And what that means is that if we get involved in an issue and we learn about government waste, government fraud, illegal behavior, or something that could cause harm to you or to other people, we are required to report those things, and we'll let you know if we get into those areas during our conversation. When we talk with you, we'll ask lots of questions, and we'll also help brainstorm what might be good resolutions to the situation. We don't want it to go to a grievance. We want the issue to be resolved, and most issues are resolved before it becomes a grievance. The first time you hear from us, that initial inquiry might be a phone call or an email, just depending on the situation and honestly, the volume of things that we're going through sometimes. And it's typically not going to be a formal complaint at this point. It's just us calling up to say, hey, we've got this situation and we want to talk to you about it. We're going to confirm first that we're talking to the right person, because sometimes students get confused about TAs, professors, assistants, and all those sorts of situations. We make sure we're talking to the right person. We relay to you what we've been told, and then we ask you to confirm what's really happening. We know we only have one side of the story at this point, and we want to get all sides of the story. And so we're asking you, we're saying, hey, here's what the students told us, but tell us what's really going on, because we know that there's probably a lot more to it. We will confirm with you that you've actually talked to the student, because we don't want the student to tell us, oh, I've talked to this person and they haven't. We'll again ask you lots of questions. It is not to try to cause anything negative to happen to you, but just to make sure we understand the situation and that we've explained things as best as we can to the student, and we'll explain things as best as we can to you also. And then again, we want to brainstorm resolutions and possible ways to resolve the issue with you so that it doesn't go any further. If an actual grievance is filed, then there's also some things that you will have as far as communication with us. We will give you something in writing. If we've talked to you, the issue is not able to be resolved, you'll get an actual written notice that the grievance has been filed. And not only will you get a written notice, you get the opportunity to review the entire file. Anything that student has turned in, anything that has been found through the investigation of the situation. There will be a file created at our office, and you can come and you can look through that file yourself and see everything that has to do with it. You have a right to do that, and you need to know that if somebody is filing a grievance. Also, once a grievance goes to the Student Grievance Committee, there will be written notice provided to you of the decision from the chair of the Student Grievance Committee. That is a written decision that will tell you, wow, the committee looked at this and said, wow, there's nothing to it. We're just dismissing and taking no action. Or you'll get a written decision saying that other action is happening as the situation has been investigated. If it gets to the point of an actual hearing, and as I said last year, we only had one case that became a hearing. Then the judgment, that final judgment that we talked about earlier, is made to the appropriate administrator unless it's a grade change, and then that goes to the provost. I'm telling you this because oftentimes professors, again, ask, who's going to find out about this? Who knows what's going on here? I tell them about FERPA, and then I tell them about if it gets to the point of an actual grievance, this is what the policies say about who finds out about it. And again, just as I told you before, most cases, as you can remember from the chart I showed you before, most cases get resolved before they ever get that far. Out of 876 cases or contacts last year, only 11 of them resulted in actual written complaints, and only one of those went so far as to have a hearing.
And so in conclusion, what we'd like for you to take from this presentation is that we are here to help. We are a resource for students, but we do get faculty, staff calls with questions. We are glad to help as well, direct, whether it's the faculty or a staff member, to help the student who they are, assisting, to have them either, come to our office directly for a one-on-one meeting with us, and we'll guide them through those processes, help them with that. And so, we'll explain to the student university policy and what they need to do in order to file their complaint. And so again, next slide, sorry. We will not be making any decisions about discipline. We help students through the process of the judicial procedures, but we don't take any action toward it, or we are not in any of those meetings. That's a separate process, but we help students through it. We don't take sides. We do not provide legal advice, and we do not fill any other university roles, which could create a conflict of interest.
We've given you a lot of information today. Here's sources where we got that information from. You can see it comes from official sources at the university and other places. And hopefully we have provided lots of good information. We thank you for your time and your interest in our office. And at this time, we want to go ahead and open up to any questions that you might have and see what answers we can provide for you.